Hey, Jarek here, and there's been a good amount of talk about bad games made by good developers.
Why doesn't the general tell that skin coat guy to go suck some balls?
And that's an interesting topic, so I may cover it in the future, but I want to do the opposite today. What are those unexpectedly good games from bad developers? Gearbox. I'm stretching the definition of bad developer here. Gearbox is a solid studio that can make a polished game. As a company though, they're a bit greasy. I think bad definitely applies. Their CEO has been under fire for so many misconduct cases, but I think the thing that really stands out with Gearbox, the thing that most people will remember above all, is Aliens Colonial Marines. At least that's what I would say if I didn't love Half-Life so much. Opposing Force is debatedly the best Half-Life game that's ever come out. And that's seriously impressive when there's not really a bad mainline Half-Life game, and all of the others are made by Valve, with the exception of Blue Shift. Perhaps Opposing Force was such a good expansion to the original Half-Life because Gearbox already had Valve's blueprint to work with, and maybe they just weren't the studio they are now yet. What do I mean by the studio they are now? Well, talk about stealing money from their publisher to shove it into Borderlands instead of actually working on Colonial Marines. If you ask me if I'm going to prefer a Borderlands game or an Aliens game, I'd take a good Aliens game 10 times out of 10. Seriously, most of this work was outsourced while they were busy working on Borderlands. All the while, they were showing us trailers that did not represent the final game at all. We're just lucky Opposing Force didn't end up like this.
Croc, move! Get out of the way! Wow, it doesn't seem to care. It just like ran away. See, look, it just kind of like looked and then ran off. No! See, it just like doesn't care.
You know something has gone wrong when you try to do horror and people laugh. Maybe they just respected Valve more, I don't know. Either way, it leaves me conflicted when it shouldn't. The idea of playing as a Marine during the Resonance Cascade is just so cool. It gave you so many new weapons that we never saw again, and it gave us an entirely new alien race that never came back. In fact, Valve considers this not canon, so we are never seeing Adrian Shepard or Race X again. And that doesn't leave me conflicted, that just leaves me sad. Please come back, Adrian Shepard, and if you do, perhaps don't bring Gearbox with you. Timegate Studios. This is a studio you saw working on a lot of projects that were outsourced to them. In all fairness, Timegate Studios is not a bad developer, so to say. They just released some 6, 7 out of 10 games that didn't really leave much of an impact, thus didn't really sell very well, so they became a help studio. But the first game they helped with was F.E.A.R Extraction Point, my favorite in the entire series. Again, this is seriously impressive. The original F.E.A.R was made by Monolith. Monolith has made some legendary games. They've also made some horrible sequels, or at least disappointing ones, so perhaps Timegate was in the right place, right time. Extraction Point did end up a lot better than F.E.A.R 2, after all. But what's so impressive about Extraction Point is that someone at Timegate definitely understood F.E.A.R. The original F.E.A.R, while having Alma all over the cover art and all over the promotional material, was honestly not that much of a horror game. The main focus was to put you in a multiplayer style arena with really good AI. The horror elements may get you every once in a while.
Oh fuck!
But for the most part, they were there just as a pacing mechanic, to break up all the other combat sections to slow the game down a little bit. I think that's really cool. I'd like to see more of this. It's better than just a physics puzzle. But again, these moments were really short-lived. That is not the same in Extraction Point. These horror sections are a good half of the game. You will remember that hospital. I don't need to show any footage. You know the one I'm talking about. This isn't to say the combat wasn't fun. I mean, F.E.A.R.'s base is really good for combat, so all they really had to do there was add in a few new weapons and maybe a couple of enemies, and that was it. But if I said Extraction Point is the peak of the franchise, and Timegate made another expansion after this, something went wrong. They made Perseus Mandate, and the graphics look terrible, the story is absolutely pointless, having nothing to do with the rest of F.E.A.R., and they added new enemies that are incredibly annoying. This was just not a good expansion. Perhaps they were obligated to make another expansion contractually and they just didn't have the time or budget to make it decent, who knows? But they did prove they have the potential and talent to make good games. Well, unfortunately, Gearbox happened. Yeah, our good friends over at Gearbox came back. Hey, remember when I said that a lot of Colonial Marines was outsourced? Earlier on in Colonial Marines development, Timegate Studios was the main developer. However, even though Timegate handled primary development of the game until Borderlands 2 was finished, their work had to constantly be approved by both Gearbox and Sega. Narrative designers were still writing the script of the campaign mode. Entire scenes and missions were discarded due to story changes. Ultimately, they really couldn't do much about the situation. They just had to go along with what they got. It did not help that a lot of this budget continued to be shoved towards Borderlands instead of Aliens Colonial Marines. Timegate then struggled to optimize the game after spending a significant amount of time increasing its graphical fidelity for a press demo, which ran on high-end computers not normally meant for general use. The game couldn't even function on the PlayStation 3. At the end of the day, this fiasco forced them to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. They're out of business and now defunct. All thanks to Gearbox. Yeah, I think we can call Gearbox a bad studio now. 343, boy, this is going to be a controversial segment of the video. 343 confuses me because they seem to learn something each game and then forget it. Halo 4 had a pretty decent campaign, but an absolutely awful multiplayer. They completely forgot how to make a campaign, and Halo 5's campaign ended up being one of the worst ever. Halo 5's multiplayer ended up being almost as good, if not just as good, as the original Halo trilogy. Halo Infinite made a decent campaign again, and then they totally butchered the multiplayer. So what I want to focus on here is the Halo 5 multiplayer. This is the one thing 343 has made that has genuinely been amazing. This brought back the general feel of the original Halo trilogy, at least on the MLG side at first. Later on, they added in so many casual modes that the casual side came back too. Now, before you go, but it looks hideous and horrible, yeah, that has nothing to do with the gameplay. I truly believe that people feel like Halo Infinite is an older feeling Halo game just because of how it looks. This doesn't feel like early Halo to me, it's a little too fast. Which is funny to say when Halo 5 has sprint and boost, but the general strafe feels like old Halo strafe, and that's really important. Anyway, after the departure of Halo that was Halo 4's multiplayer where you all had loadouts and nothing seemed to matter, Halo 5 brought back everyone spawning with the same things and classic Halo map design. To me, Halo 5 almost felt like a blend of Halo 1 and Halo 3. I loved it. It's easily one of my favorite multiplayers in the entire franchise. Halo right now is in a very weird state, and people just don't have much positivity or hope going forward. I'm not really a 343 hater, but even I feel like it's probably time to give it to someone else right about now. Burut Creative, I'm probably mispronouncing that horribly. This is a developer you've probably heard nothing of. That's because for the most part, all they've released is low-budget shovelware. However, they did release a game called Uber Soldier 2. Definitely a low-budget game, but it surprised me. This is genuinely a good game. The only good game in their entire catalog. The gunplay and gore feels nice and punchy. It almost has the F.E.A.R engine feel to it when it comes to the combat. And there's some really forward-thinking mechanics here. If you get 3 headshots, you can go to the slow motion mode. You're invincible during this time and have unlimited ammo. If you knife 3 people, you go berserk. And every time you kill another person while berserk, you get some health back. Keep in mind, 2008. These mechanics weren't widely popularized yet. Space Marine wouldn't come out for 3 more years, Doom 2016, 8 more years. There's a full upgrade system that's pretty intuitive. Overall, this is just a solid game, and I would definitely recommend. I made a video on it years ago, you can check that up in the top right. Wiple Games, a studio that is not bad, and you've probably never heard of them. But that's because they've made one total game in their entire lifespan of existing as a company. But that one game is so good that I wanted to include it here. It's Iron Sight. I'm including this because this game is genuinely better than modern Call of Duty, while being a Black Ops 2 clone. Now, this was initially published by F.E.A.R Games before they took their servers down. Wiple decided to re-upload this to Steam and host the servers themselves, keeping the game alive. It was released in 2018 and it's still being updated to this day, with new guns and maps being added every season. They clearly care about this game, and again, it is better than modern Call of Duty games. If you miss Black Ops 2, download this game. It's free on Steam. It's not pay to win. You can unlock everything without much grind. Like seriously, downloading it on Steam will give you a box with like 5 to 8 different guns right away. It has really good game feel. There's a ton of content here. It's just so bizarre that this game came out of nowhere from a developer that's only made one game. So there you guys go. There's some good games by some bad developers. Or dubious developers, at least. If I missed any, leave them down below in the comments. I'm sure I've forgotten some of them, and maybe I'll make a follow-up video. Hey, big thanks to my YouTube members. They get to see my videos early. Seriously, it means a lot that people actually care enough to become members of this channel. If you want to see more of my videos, check that right over there. I got a whole playlist of my videos if you want to check them out. If you want to subscribe, you can check that up there. If you want to check out my Twitch, down there, in the bottom right, twitch.tv/DerekForGamingDragon. Thank all of you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.